we go.
All right, thank you. So you can start anytime now.
Okay, so Joseph Conrad's novella, Heart of Darkness, explores many complex themes such as capitalism and the inherent similarities underlying imperialism and capitalism. So first you need to understand what capitalism is and why people support it. One reason that people support capitalism is because they cite the economic and political freedom that such a system would allow. They hold that a government owning the means of production would lead to too powerful of a state and possibly the extension of bureaucracy into other major aspects of life. So one other piece of evidence that they use to support their position is that private firms do tend to sometimes work more efficiently than government firms, as they have a higher incentive to actually make products that the population needs or thinks they need, and are more willing to fire surplus workers than government firms. So in theory, this results in a faster growth and faster rate of GDP increase, and theoretically would result in a trickle-down effect from the rich to the poor.
So many of these things that people say in support of capitalism are actually very far from the truth. The idea that many capitalist supporters perpetuate is that, it's the best approach that will lead to the greatest efficiency, and what the market wants will ultimately lead to the most efficient solution. But what that fails to include is that this sort of efficiency actually focuses not on what is best for the community as a whole and for humanity, but rather what is best for businesses and what generates the most profit. It is concerned mainly only with business and how business functions. As you can see here, this is just a graphic. It will lead to the most efficient solutions for big pharma and big business, but it will not lead to the best solution for keeping people healthy and maintaining a standard of living. Collusion of businesses will allow them to set high prices, for example, for healthcare, and that's very efficient for them, but it's not so efficient for humans. An example of that is, of course, an affordable medicine. Like EpiPens cost many times more here than in Canada because it's most efficient for those companies. Only the rich people have a voice, essentially, or they have a much greater voice than the poor and disadvantaged. And this fundamental classism is one of the many reasons capitalism is unethical. Essentially, it focuses on shareholder capital over people. And this quote really shows how one of the main reasons capitalism is wrong is because, a company reaps in all the profit from whatever it does, but any of the costs incurred are suffered by the society as a whole. So another reason the capitalism is wrong fundamentally, so for example, many suggested regulating capitalism as a way to fix the issue, at least partially. And the reason that will not work, or will only work so far, is because at its fundamentals, capitalism is wrong because the idea is that labor generated by the working class will always exceed the wages paid to the working class. That's how it works, that's how you make profit. So no matter how many regulations are imposed on companies and how many minimum wage laws are inserted or things like that, the idea is that workers put in more into society than they get back, and the capitalist class receives the value of their labor without putting in any work themselves. So the result is that the working class is disadvantaged and they have to sell their labor to survive, while the capitalist class produces nothing useful for society and accumulates the wealth.
Okay. So with imperialism and capitalism, it's pretty obvious that you cannot have one without the other. In 1913, Vladimir Lenin, a great man, characterized imperialism as a regime of governance by monopoly capital. The stockholders, the investors, the owners, etc. And this definition is still highly applicable in today's world. In many cases, almost all cases, a small number of corporations own the majority of the market shares of a country's major industries, for example, vital industries like energy production and things like that. For example, the pharmaceutical industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, the top 10 corporations own about 55% of the entire world's market shares. And they frequently establish political action groups as a way to push their goals through government. And this can be seen in the General Agreement on Trade and Services, in which many large corporations colluded to push their goals through representatives and lobbyists, etc. So another, I guess, pillar of capitalism, as Lenin defined it, is that corporations, they depend on foreign investment to survive. So corporations, they globalize to as much an extent as possible so as to invade other foreign markets, and this is a good thing for global trade, but it's also a bad thing for developing countries, as corporations will invest heavily in infrastructure in developing countries and thus gain considerable power over government officials that way. And larger multinational corporations will usually collude to manipulate prices in the markets. During the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, large businesses cooperated to set market rules and market policy that would benefit them the most. Major global businesses also will subcontract firms in developing countries so that they assimilate the smaller chains into their networks, allowing the largest stakeholders to manipulate prices at the very bottom of the chain.
So, I wanted to go over how capitalism is fundamentally unethical, because it is, it's rooted in materialism. It values people over or profit over people. So, I like this cartoon because it shows how, people are not treated as valuable intrinsically in a capitalist system. They're treated as ways to generate profit and be paid wages that are far inferior to the profit being generated. Ultimately, as much as optimistic supporters of capitalism like to say, despite that, companies are mainly concerned with the bottom line, and there are a lot of capitalists that would suggest that companies provide opportunity, or companies donate to charity so much. But a lot of it, I believe, is for PR purposes, and a lot of it, regardless of how much they donate to charity or how much they claim to provide opportunity, none of those things will ever compensate for the labor value stolen from the proletariat. So, let's play a game. So the way this is going to work is we will pose a question, and I'll have call on 3 people who raise their hands, or if nobody does, I'll call on people randomly. And you will guess an answer to the question that you think is closest, and whoever is closest, once we know the real answer, will get 2 pieces of candy, and everyone loves candy. So, first question. By what percentage has the average debt of those in the bottom 25% by wealth in America increased from 2007 to 2013, so over 6 years? Anyone have any guess? Sierra?
12%.
12%. Interesting. Anyone else? Mark? 27. Okay. Anyone else? Dala, what do you think? Emma?
35.
Interesting. 550%. So, Emma, you said 35, right? I don't think that's a very good answer, but you can have 2 pieces of candy nonetheless.
Thank you.
I did support capitalism by buying it after all, so,
Thank you.
All right, round 2.
I'm pausing the stop clock for just a second.
Hmm?
I'm pausing the time clock for just a second. What accounts for that?
What do you mean? It measures the net worth of people in the bottom quartile. And by the way, this data is from the Congressional Budget Office, not Marxist.com, as I originally looked. So it is actually not biased. It is by the Congressional Budget Office. And, they found that the increase, the bottom quartile on average has always been in debt pretty much. their net worth is negative. They hold more liabilities than assets. And it has increased from, I believe, $3,000 to something along 11,000, 13,000, I don't remember.
Breakdown, is that like healthcare debt, that's housing debt, that's student debt?
All of those things added up. Yeah, it's the net worth. All right, question 2. By what percentage, adjusted for inflation, has the average net worth of Forbes 400 members grown from 1982 to 2015? And for those of you who don't know, Forbes 400 is the yearly published list of the 400 richest individuals in America. Anyone have any guesses? Dolly has a guess. 10,000%. Interesting. Anyone else have any guesses? Mark is at it again. 350%. Okay, Melinda? 500%. 925%, so Melinda does win. I know. Try to guess actually with what you believe initially. Because I know that the value of the first one just shocked you so much that you're already communists. Alright, round 3. What percentage of all familial wealth is owned by the poorer half of American families? So the families that are in the bottom half, the poorer half of America, what percentage of all the wealth owned by every family in America do they own? Any guesses? Mark?
0.128.
Mark, guess realistically.
12.8.
12.8. Sierra?
8%.
8%. 1%. It's 1%. So the top half owns 99% of all the wealth. And this is according to, once again, the Congressional Budget Office. So kind of makes you wonder how fair capitalism is and how nice those opportunities are after all. Final question. How many poorest American people have combined retirement savings equal to those of the, 100 CEOs with the largest retirement savings? So if you add up all the retirement savings of the 100 richest CEOs, how many poorest people will it take to match those retirement savings? Mark, once again, has a guess. I don't think so, Mark. There are not that many people in America. I'm not going to call on you anymore. Look, you haven't spoken.
50 million.
50 million. Interesting. Luck. 20 million. Gare? 10 million. 116 million. Once again, quality data. Who won? Who said the worst English? Look. Enjoy. So it kind of makes you wonder if 100 people have as much saved up as 116 million people. I'm not sure capitalism provides as much opportunity as people like to claim. I think. No, I actually think that's Tillman.
Okay.
I've got to tell you. Okay. So I'm sure some of the statistics were quite surprising. And the reason they're so surprising is once again because capitalists like to perpetuate the idea that even though some